Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to Allman Global's webinar dedicated to the new look of global travel topic. It is hosted by Richard Barnes and Mary Gostelow. My name is Timo Tal and I will look after the technical side of our webinar. Please note that all webinar guest microphones have been muted. So if you have any questions, please send them via Zoom chat box that is located in the bottom of your Zoom application, either on your desktop or mobile phone. Our hosts will be more than happy to answer your questions in the third 15 minutes act of the webinar. The whole event will last 45 minutes, and we're going to start with Richard Barnes. Richard, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Timo. Well, welcome to this Allman Global webinar. Before beginning, I'd like to give you a very brief outline of Allman Global. Allman Global was formed this year as a partnership between Yuri Horovi of the Allman Group, with Allman Travel and Allman Visas already operating for many years, along with Mary Gostelow, who needs no introduction, and myself. I've been working in media for 40 years now, actually 41 if I count properly, and among other things, I'm editor-in-chief for a number of trade publications. Allman Global works worldwide in the field of MarCom support for all players in the luxury tourism and lifestyle sectors, including destination marketing organizations, hotel owners and operators, and travel service providers. Well, now to kick off today's webinar, here's Mary Gostelow.
Mary, please turn on your mic. Your microphone. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Richard, for those words. I am so thrilled to be talking to you all. As most of you know, I am used to traveling over 300 days a year, whether or not I'm in Albania, whether I am in Zimbabwe, whether I'm in North America or South Australia. But it's amazing how during lockdown, here from my base in rural England, I'm still in touch with the world. And I am so impressed to see what people are actually doing today. And I am discovering that actually what travelers really want, travelers who are back to traveling, is not what many of the suppliers think they want. Suppliers seem to think that all those travelers, and yes, they're traveling just as much as they always have done, and look at the WTTC figures that support the amount of travel over the last few years, and the number of figures that are for travelers who are going today. Nobody can really assess how many people are traveling today. And most of the stats and the forecasts are completely wrong. Anybody can say 87% of this and 87% of that. But what I'm seeing is that generally people are spending more than expected. Many of the GMs to whom I'm talking, I believe in talking to people who see what is actually going on. And I've talked to lots of the operators, and they're seeing that there are some big advantages in being a non-brand. Of course, there are no conferences at the moment. Interestingly, talking of conferences, Alex Kajavi, who's the MD EAME for the big American global giant QuestX, which organizes such mammoth events as the annual IHIF, International Hotel Investment Forum, which is always back to back with ITB in Berlin. He was very unhappy, as he wrote in Hospitality Insights last Friday, that when he was staying only a week ago in a prominent brand name hotel in San Francisco, he says that the hotel felt like a mausoleum. It was more like staying in a mausoleum all by yourself. all the public spaces were closed, and sanitation was value proposition number one. Yes, that's fine and good, but it was promoted on the television, on laminated wall posters, everywhere. That was not what he wanted. Yes, travelers today are worried about health and hygiene, but I'm finding more and more that actually they expect hotels to offer that. That's one of the reasons why they're staying in hotels rather than staying in some other places. Once they reached a hotel, they have other things on their mind. What have they got on their mind? They want companionship. They want people. I was talking to Tim Anandiadis, who's been general manager of the Grand Britannia, generally known as the GB, in Athens for 17 years. He tells me that after he opened last month, he expected 5 to 10 rooms a night reserved, but the number, in fact, is minimum 35, anything between 35 and 40. And his famous rooftop indoors, outdoors restaurant, by the way, the one with such fabulous Acropolis views that you feel you could lean out and touch the Acropolis, that's full every night. It's full with locals who've come back. And I'm finding this everywhere, that local people are really flocking back to support the properties, the hotels they've known for such a long time. As a result of this, for instance, in Abu Dhabi, Park Hyatt GM Doris Hecht says that July 2020 will actually outperform July 2019, but it's all local staycations because, as we in the industry all know, this emirate has even closed its borders with the rest of the UAE. She just wishes, says Doris, that she had even more villas with totally private pools. She's got 44, but she wants more. Overall, creativity in offerings is what really makes a difference today. And hotels that are privately owned, hotels that operate independently, hotels that have highly creative GMs are definitely at an advantage. Let me share what's happening, for instance, at Hotel de l'Europe in Amsterdam. It's a leading hotel of the world, but that's its only affiliation. It's privately owned, fortunately, by the Heineken family, which obviously helps. And it's got a really great GM, Edwin Leenders, who for many years was with the Roccoforte family. Well, at the beginning of lockdown, Leenders talked to a local design duo called Nice Makers. He talked to these two creative youngsters, Dax Roll and Joyce Urbanus. He wanted to give the public spaces a purpose. He wanted to make the hotel a destination. They decided that they needed to bring a bookshop in. They had plenty of public spaces. So they arranged with Mendo Bookshop, which has a very good brand awareness in Amsterdam, that the bookshop should move in lock, stock, and barrel into the hotel. This saved Mendo paying rent. It saved a lot of overheads for Mendo. It probably helps right now that Mendo's publisher, by the way, is a prominent Black Lives Matter activist, Gunifort Uwambaga, and it definitely helps the hotel because it had this library before, the Johannes van Dam library, but who goes in normally into a hotel's library? But if you make a library into a lively bookshop with authors doing events and local people coming in, then everybody benefits. And Edward Leenders similarly brought into the hotel on a permanent basis Wunderkammer. This is a floral boutique headed by two over-the-top, decadent display floral creators, Florian Seid and Uli Sigmar. And they moved their headquarters into a space within the hotel. Therefore, there was all the more reason for people to come to the hotel. It already had 3 restaurants and bars, by the way, but Leenders added a casual trattoria. Now remember, he didn't have to report to lots of tiers of brand management. He didn't have to wonder about space, so he had lots of advantages. He added Graziella, a casual trattoria. What's the result? Well, you'll be pleased to hear that he actually brought down the average age of guests, which now starts for the overnight guest, starts from 30, which is, I think, very young. It's typically 30 to 55, and they stay 2 nights, which is good. 90% of them drive. The other 10% probably come by train. And of course, 70% are from the Netherlands. And we are seeing around the world that it's the domestic market that is building up. By contrast, think of that iconic resort, Nihi Sumba on Sumba Island, off the coast of Bali. Sumba's actually bigger than Bali, but very few people know that. Nihi just dominates that. It's such a marvelous resort with its own polo, but it's got no business. And it will have no business because you can't get there other than by flying from Bali. And even from Bali, there's not much domestic travel. If you do have a drive, by the way, you can extend it if you have drive potential. So let's go to Lithuania. In Vilnius, the Kempinski Hotel Cathedral Square finds that business is being sourced not only throughout the whole of the country, but people are driving from Estonia, Latvia, and Poland, and Finland, and they never had any Finnish guests before. Previously, the length of stay, of course, pre-COVID, the length of stay was 1 to 2 nights, but now it's 2 to 4 nights. And they're spending very nicely. Last week, the GM tells me he sold a bottle of whiskey for 1,800 euros. Before, people only stayed 1 to 2 nights, but now they stay 2 to 4 nights. There's no business, it's all leisure. And one challenge is that before, his average booking window was 3.5 weeks, and now 35% are booking within 24 hours of arriving. They're probably already on the road, and 75% total are booking in under a week. Back to the average stay. I was talking to the general manager of Sheraton Palace Kempinski in Istanbul. Before, he saw people staying 2.5 nights, and now it's 4 to 5 nights. It's an advantage that he has so much outside space. He's right next to the Bosphorus. He has that amazing heated outdoor pool right next to the Bosphorus. And all 322 rooms have considerable terraces. He's having the challenge that he now has a maximum of 100 guests for big events, whereas before weddings were often over 1,500. The hotel is running, however, at 35%, and that's the highest occupancy in the city. Local staycation, national staycations really help any city hotel that has a resort feel. So in Dubai, hotels on the Palm and on the mainland beaches have an advantage. And properties like Raffles Dubai benefit also from having air-conditioned links to mall shopping. Malls, interestingly, were until mid-June closed to anybody under 12 and over 60. Worldwide, there is also a magnetic draw to medical tourism, which can be interpreted as any destination that makes you feel better. Think of the result of an Ayurvedic treatment at Ananda in the Himalayas, or a six senses massage at any of their resorts, or their spas in such other hotels as Alpina Gstaad in Switzerland. Many destinations are seeing, by the way, an increased interest in sustainable aspects of travel. And again, Alpina Gstaad is interesting here. It's owned by the Miraman family, currently headed by brothers Arya and Naxon Nimran. They invested in the best when building this oversized chalet. More design, for instance, Jean-Mou Gardens, and they own 2.org Research, a biofabrication a factory which is trialing insulation panels made from mushrooms. All these little sustainable efforts really filter down through to travelers and to consumers. And they really are appreciative of all sustainable efforts. Against that, of course, we've got private jets, but private jets, which are seeing big growth in travel, are playing a role in that they're getting people to travel again who may not otherwise travel. I was talking to a 30-year-old globe-trotting Russian male yesterday who only travels private jets or first class, and one of the reasons that he is so pro-private jet at the moment is that he can still get his glass of champagne. I love people with such style. He was bemoaning the fact that Air France has closed its first class salon at Paris CDG, and he has to switch to Aeroflot if he wants champagne, although it comes in paper cups. But he was also bemoaning the fact that Dior Homme, for whom he relies on his wardrobe, put up some beautiful items on their online collection and then announced that actually these were not going to be produced anyway. Therefore, he was unhappy with fashion. And I think the message for us is that the fashion field is not necessarily getting it right, but that's no excuse for us not correctly to interpret what today's travelers really want. And now I'm thrilled to hand over to Richard Barnes to explain what people are doing. Richard, the floor is yours.
Well, thanks, Mary. And as we all know, in the past months, a lot has happened. So the big question today is, how can we find a definition of good practices in tourism communication? Some destination marketing organizations figured the best thing to do was just go underground, keep quiet and say nothing. As some say, absence makes the heart grow fonder, but others might simply say, out of sight, out of mind. Well, I would say by failing to communicate at all, the result is exactly that. You stay out of people's minds, so not a good practice. So the first good practice is communicating in bad times and in good. Communication is key. With COVID-19, people have been changing the way they live day to day. They've become used to staying at home. Some people can't wait to travel internationally again. Of course, I'm one. We're all, I think everybody on this call is one, but a lot of people who now have limited budgets and still somewhat scared are going to put off travel for some time unless they can be convinced otherwise. Well, here an exceptional effort is going to be needed in order to motivate people. Of course, the budgets of destination marketing organizations have been decimated as well. We're quite aware of that. So a DMO has to be very choosy in how they target who they target. A lot depends, of course, what stage you're in. Are you in lockdown still? Are you locally restricted with travel, regionally restricted, nationally restricted, or totally now unrestricted, as is the case of the Maldives, for example? Places are tending to move back and forth between these phases, so that makes it all the more difficult to decide. A number of decisions have to be made. You have to ask yourself these questions. When do you trigger a change in messaging and markets? What experiences are you offering? Who is the right visitor to this place at this time? How do we reach them? What is the right message? And how do we support industry players who are reopening? Now, we're seeing a lot of DMOs who are putting out press releases saying, we're reopening our borders. Well, that's very nice, but then what? If you count 200 press releases all saying we're opening our borders, journalists are not really paying so much attention. If you want to get coverage in the media, you need to add something to that. Something new and exciting in terms of promotion that others aren't doing. What about new partnerships? And maybe you could develop different messages for different markets. Human interest stories is another good idea, or story ideas for foreign media to pick up. You can launch new tourism experiences, for example, visiting rural regions or other remote locations that are going to work better at the moment. Don't forget also that the type of messaging you're doing for B2C and B2B will need to be totally different. If you're targeting travel professionals, you have to target these people very specifically with your messages. These are the people who are going to be pushing the tourists to go back to your destination once the borders open again. Well, we say that COVID-19 is like pressing the reset button on tourism. So are your old brand and positioning still relevant? What strategic shifts should you be looking at? We need to create new narratives. So people have become accustomed to not traveling. It'll take time for them to get back into the habit. Some are ready and raring to go, but not everyone. They'll need to be motivated, and you will need to find new arguments to bring them to your destination. So what kind of things have DMOs been doing to bring people back? There are quite a few. So we've compiled our top 10, which we hope will be a source of motivation. Our number 10 is New Zealand. Tourism New Zealand has launched a free digital toolkit for the tourism industry to leverage its Do Something New New Zealand campaign. The campaign launched on the 22nd of May to encourage New Zealanders to travel domestically. Since then, it's reached over 2.1 million people on social media, has resulted in over 52,500 visits to newzealand.com and over 1,200 referrals to operator websites via business listings and deals. Meanwhile, for the first time, Tourism New Zealand, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, the Ministry for Primary Industries, Education New Zealand, and New Zealand Story are working together on a joint global campaign to promote New Zealand's brand on the world stage. Number 9 is Tourism Australia. Tourism Australia has been doing anything but sit around and wait for things to start happening again when it comes to promotional ideas. This month alone, they've launched a number of new initiatives, including the fact that Discover Aboriginal Experiences has become a TV show. and can be downloaded on SBS. They've also launched a new podcast series called Only in Australia. An industry webinar series has been launched in Southeast Asia, having done webinars already in North America, the UK, and Europe in June. And Tourism Australia has partnered with Australian Traveller magazine on their 100 Ways to Holiday Here this year. Number 8 is USA and Las Vegas in particular. A hotel CEO and developer announced a giveaway of 1,000 free flights into the gambling capital, one-way flights, by the way, as the city reopened in early June. Derek Stevens, who owns 2 hotel casinos, the D Las Vegas and the Golden Gate, wrote that the promotion was intended to help stimulate tourism and remind travelers of the fun they could have in the city. Now, coming from one, I think I've been to Vegas, I counted 37 times, he's not wrong. Well, I think this is a very smart move because it's pretty sure that these visitors will be spending a lot more in the casinos than was spent on the air tickets. Number 7 is Bulgaria. Some beaches in Bulgaria are to become free for tourists. Beach umbrellas, sunbeds, and tables would be free of charge for visitors. The average value of a daily sun lounger on the popular beach is approximately £5 per person. So that means a saving of £140 for a family's week-long holiday alone. If you add in tables and beach umbrellas, tourists could find themselves saving hundreds of pounds on their return. Number 6 is Mexico. Cancun in particular, the holiday hotspot on Mexico's Atlantic coast, is offering free hotel stays, meals, hire cars, and theme park entry in a new campaign destined to bring tourists back to the Central American nation. Cancun's initiative, which involves over 200 businesses, was launched on June 15. The campaign offers free stays for up to 2 children when 2 adults book, or 2 nights for free for every 2 nights booked. The latter has also been extended for those looking to hire cars. For example, if you book a hotel for 2 nights, you get the second 2 nights free, and the same with the hire car. Number 5 is Malaysia and the state of Sarawak. A new incentive has been announced by Sarawak's Tourism, Arts and Culture Minister. The initiative is that travel agencies in Sarawak will receive support for tour packages sold that has a minimum of 4 persons and a maximum of 15 at any one time, excluding children under the age of 2. For example, a 3-day, 2-night package sold, the agent will receive 30 Malaysian ringgit, or about $7 for each of the first 4 tourists, and an additional 20 for each subsequent tourist. The incentives run from 1st of July this year to December 31st. In an effort to revive tourism in Sarawak, the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture is continuing to promote the Visit Sarawak campaign, or VSC, with its new post-COVID-19 campaign tagline, "Rediscover yourself in Sarawak." We like that because this is a new angle on an old story. They're shifting their focus to domestic tourism with the focus of strengthening the Sarawak More to Discover brand, at the same time promoting the 5 key themes of Sarawak's unique experience in terms of culture, adventure, nature, food, and festivals. Number 4 is Italy. The Italian island of Sicily announced a program to encourage visitors to return after the pandemic. Subsidies include half the cost of a plane ticket, as well as a night at a hotel and attraction entry fees. The Italian government will reportedly cover the cost of 1 night in a hotel for every 3 nights booked. The scheme will be funded to the tune of €50 million and will be available on Sicily's tourism website. Number 3 is Macau. The Macau Government Tourist Office, or MGTO, Local Tourist Project, Macau Ready Go Local Tours, launched 1 month ago. It has attracted so far over 80,000 participants. The officers therefore plan to launch 10 new itineraries this month. Among those 10 itineraries, 7 are community-based tours with new elements included, such as photography sessions instructed by professional photographers and visits to private jet displays. The existing 15 itineraries have already attracted fantastic feedback, with most participants saying they had a very positive attitude and they were expecting great new elements. Our number 2 is Switzerland. In Switzerland, a number of proposals have been developed to incentivize Swiss residents to holiday in their own country. Excuse me. Now, the centerpiece of the support plan is to give every Swiss resident a 200 franc voucher to be spent in the Swiss tourism or hospitality industries. The vouchers can be used in hotels or with tour operators, while the money can also go towards restaurants and leisure facilities. The total cost of the voucher scheme will be 1.7 billion Swiss francs. Meanwhile, in a bid to kickstart the city's tourism industry, Geneva Tourism has invested significantly into Geneva Boxes, giving visitors exciting city experiences and hotel packages with up to a 65% saving up until the 31st of December. Now, these boxes are divided into 4 main themes: the terroir, the art of living, including culture, gastronomy, and nature; international scientific Geneva; and one that I like is fine watchmaking. An example of the create your own watch exclusive collection deal is a double room in a 5-star hotel for 1 night for 2 people, making your own watch with a master watchmaker for 2 people, and having lunch with the watchmaker, that's included, free public transport, and the price for 2 people is £808 instead of 2,297. That's a 65% saving. So really a fantastic, several fantastic deals going on there in Geneva. So our number one, we come to our number one now, and number one is, you guessed it, Thailand. The Thai government has issued a stimulus package worth 22.4 billion baht, that's 718 million US dollars, to revitalize its tourism industry. The packages are aimed at boosting domestic travel by subsidizing hotel accommodation, airline tickets, and facilities in tourist destinations around the country. The packages, named We Travel Together and Moral Support, are designed to boost domestic travel by providing an array of travel perks such as subsidized flights, car rental fees, and bus fares. There are also subsidies available for hotel accommodations, food, and facilities provided at tourist destinations. The subsidies will be available from July to October 2020 and also include funding to support domestic trips for more than 1 million healthcare workers and volunteers from sub-district hospitals. So bravo to Thailand for offering that. That's a fantastic thing that they're doing. It's a sign of their gratitude for the service in helping to combat the pandemic. Well, meanwhile, King Power Group, in collaboration with the Ministry of Tourism and Sports and the Tourism Authority of Thailand, have just announced last Friday a phenomenal campaign called Thailand Smiles With You, which aims to promote Thailand to the world through Leicester City FC, a UK Premier League team which boasts 1 billion worldwide fans. The campaign highlights Thai smiles in the meaning of sending support and care from Thai people to people in the world during this difficult time of the pandemic. So that's our top 10. Now, that's just a selection, of course, many creative things, and we've probably missed a few, but that's our top 10 to give you a bit of inspiration. As I said, many other examples. One that caught my eye, and this is not in the top 10, but it was a really good one, and I wanted to finish with this, is in Beppu in Japan, where they've announced the onsen journey. It's a video that depicts the birth of the Beppu hot springs over 2.6 million years. Released on the 25th of June, the idea is to share the video around the world. It's a beautifully produced film, and it deserves a lot of credit. Here's the trailer.
The secret of Japan's most notable onsen city. Split, fall, and rise. A 2.6 million year process. Finally revealed. Beppu, the onsen journey.
A fabulous film, and the longer version is available online. It's worth watching. Well, that wraps up my part of this webinar. We've had time for a few questions now, so it's back to Timo, who's managing the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you, Mary. I have received a couple of questions into my direct messages. And the first question is for Mary. Just a second. So, Mary, do you think that the global travel now moves to closer to home model?
I think it certainly does, actually. So for the time being, my first trip will actually be, I mentioned earlier that I am in England, and I have been for a couple of months now. My first trip is going to be to the new Pig Hotel at Harlem Bay. I love the Pig brands, quintessentially English, and I will be starting there. But once I begin to start traveling, my goodness, my list is copious. There are so many places to go to. For instance, I'm longing to go back to Israel. I want to see the new Six Senses Shaharut with its camel stable. I haven't actually ridden a camel since I was last in Egypt. I can't wait to go back to Israel, which has so many beautiful products, lovely people, has history, and has a future. But in general, for the time being, people are going to stay near at home because travel plans are changing the whole time.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. Richard, next question is for you. What do you think? What will be the new cost of travel? Is it going to drop, in your opinion?
Okay, the cost of travel overall may drop, but the price of rooms is not dropping, and the price of specific services shouldn't drop. Now, this was something that was discussed actually even a couple of years ago. I was at a conference in Florida, and at that time, people were already talking about the fact that we were going to head into a recession. Everybody knew that despite COVID-19, we were heading for a recession anyway. COVID-19 sped that up and it made it a lot worse. At that time, the discussion was around what are we going to do when we hit this recession? Are we going to drop prices? How are we going to cope with this? Now, the general consensus is it's not intelligent to drop prices. You have to keep your prices at the same sorts of levels that you generally have in the past. Of course, there are ups and downs, but there's going to be no major discounting. What we are seeing, however, is a lot of, as I was talking about, special deals on top of what you've already paid for. So if you pay full freight for a room for 2 nights, you can have a 3rd night for free, or you can have an upgrade, or you can have a meal in the restaurant. And this is the kind of thing that hotel operators are doing. Also, tour operators, it's exactly the same story. They have to keep their prices at similar levels to before, because otherwise the industry really will suffer greatly. So yes, prices are generally staying the same, but overall, the cost of a holiday should be a little less than people were originally planning.
The next question is very similar to the previous one, and it is for you, Richard. What do you think? Will it be possible in current circumstances to make more from fewer tourists?
I think it could, and this is where the luxury travel industry will probably come into its own. It's going to be very important, as we were saying before, to target the right people. We should no longer be targeting mass tourism. I've been seeing one perfect example is Venice, which is also hitting the reset button. Venice is going to be looking at promoting to people who are going to want to stay several nights. They don't want the one-day visitors so much anymore. Of course, they'll welcome them, but that's not who they're targeting. So with a similar number of visitors or even fewer visitors than before, it is possible, if you're getting the right people there, to make more money. And don't forget, the people who are going to be traveling after the borders come down are going to be the people who do have a little bit more money and who are able to spend a few more nights or to have a nice room. So I think personally that DMOs should be really specifically targeting that higher end of the market with a higher end offering and with some but they need to have something extra. They need to have something specific and interesting to attract these people. It's not the same old. It has to be something new.
Thank you, Richard. Mary, the last question is for you. Is there any chance that family travel will grow after pandemic's end, in your opinion?
Family travel is going to grow. Families are getting bigger and bigger, not because people are having more children, but what we're finding is that a family is no longer 2 kids, parents, and possibly grandparents. Now we're finding uncles and aunts and cousins and longtime friends included in the family. And I would like to echo, by the way, what Richard is seeing. It is so commendable to find destinations going after quality, not quantity of visitors. Everybody benefits because the destination, the sustainability, everybody benefits. And if I've got a moment, could I share, Timo, details of my podcast? I'm terrifically excited, by the way, that we now have a weekly podcast. It's called Mary Gostelow Girl Ahead Podcast, and it comes up every Thursday night. Sign up. You can see on the screen how to sign up. And I talk to such exciting innovators as Bill Bensley, that over-the-top designer. I currently have up a conversation I had with Jean-Luc Naret, the former head of Michelin Global worldwide restaurant reviews and verification. And now he's setting up a similar thing for hotels around the world. And next week will be a stylish Italian, aren't they all? Ori Capri, who is the brains behind JK Place. I have coming up the head of the Global Wellness Summit to talk about wellness, travel and tourism and hospitality. I have a master planner on cities and hotels of the future. Oh, I have so many exciting people. So I look forward to talking to you all via my podcast.
Thank you very much, Mary, for that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. I will send you the link with our webinar recording very, very shortly. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please send them to me via email. Thank you again and have a wonderful week ahead. See you next time. Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.